stood out to you like this is so unfair and fucked up that I have this talent and that because my mom doesn't have enough money that I'm not able to pursue this?
I don't know that I processed that like that when I was 15, but what I did feel was I felt a certain degree of resentment, very powerful, like, it's moved me around, can't never stay still. Every time I invest in something, it get took from me. So like that, maybe that's why my right now started. It was like, right, fuck it. I'm going to the set right now. I'm on the streets. First chance I got, I was gone, and that was it. And I didn't stop running the streets until the day they put the cuffs on me.
Right. Damn. So let me ask you this. What was your street rep like before you went in and did this time? Like, to what extent did you already have your respect in the neighborhood or in the streets of where you're from?
That was, there wasn't nothing to talk about when it came to that. My family members, Big J Dog from 24th Street, Big Slim Dog who put me on the set. You know, the people I'm related to, G-Man from 29th Street, Garden Block, my family was respected, so it was just automatic. And so I had a reputation for, being a little wild, running around. I say it's like a baby vampire. You know, in vampire lore, they say you don't never turn a child into a vampire because they don't got the discipline not to drink all the blood. They'll kill the whole village.
I never heard that metaphor, but wow, that is actually a really great metaphor.
Yeah, I was a baby vampire. So once I got on, I was a jump out boy. I thought it was all good in the middle of the street, hop out, clap at something. And I loved it, the way people responded to that, or the way people felt when I came around, running around with my rag hanging. I used to put a safety pin on my pocket high so my rag could hang down there to my foot, just mobbing around like that. Like that was normal. That was the way people saw me, unless I went to one of my aunt's house. That was the only reason I wouldn't look like that. But other than that, that was my 16-hour, 20-hour a day experience and presentation. And it was utterly insane.
Yeah, like when you think back about that now, though, do you feel like you were a victim in a sense, that you were sort of taught that this was the way that you should be living your life? Or do you feel like that was just you being you, that you would have had to embrace that and figure out that one way or another?
That's a loaded question because, we would have to examine the United States of America. Victim is a very strong word. I think I am a citizen of a country, and I fit a certain demographic in this country at that age, at that time, that was under an unequivocal attack by the United States of America. And I'm talking COINTELPRO, I'm talking all the way back. And these are forces that I couldn't be aware of. Who put dope in what neighborhoods? Who put the guns there? Why are these liquor stores in our neighborhoods but not welcome? And when it comes to zoning and understanding, they won't let them put that stuff in their neighborhood,
right,
but they'll let them put it in ours. The understanding that this maze had been created for us, and you get an aerial view of a neighborhood, and you can see they parked this here, parked this there. In the LA riots, what was it? It was a trap. It wasn't no getting out. You burn yours up, but you ain't burning this up. That's what they did. And that just showed it, the reality that exists.
Right.
Cut this off, cut that off, and you trapped. So I think that child that I was trapped with limited decisions for sure.
Right.
I responded inappropriately with my own free will to that stimuli. But yet and still, the choices that were presented to me were presented deliberately by this country, and they continue to do it to this day.
No, because that's a real ass answer, because it's like you could look at it from a narrower perspective, and certain people end up walking away from jail time or experiences with gangs and shit and saying, I was victimized by the adults who are in this gang. But it takes an even bigger perspective to say like the entire neighborhood, the entire area was basically victimized by being forced into these fucking neighborhoods with bad schools and limited opportunities, and then you just expect everybody to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah,
we can look at the gentrification. We can look at how, starting from the civil rights movement, where the church and the family structure was the source of the political consciousness that existed in black families at the time. That's the truth. And it's documented that the government determined, this is documented, I'm not making that up. It was the government determined that one of the greatest threats to the United States of America, as they saw it, was the existence of a strong black family. They felt that was why the civil rights movement was so successful. So they start breaking that down. And like I studied this and spoke with some of the men in the prisons about, they took vocations out of schools. It used to be you could go to school and learn how to do, machine work. You could learn woodwork. You could learn
When
ACs.
I was a kid even,
Yeah, vocations. They don't do that no more because you had people who were leaving with a certain kind of education. They would take that education, go to factory work, and that was how they supported their families. And those families that were supported were the ones the voices came from that stood up and said, hey, we want these rights, A, B, C, and D during the civil rights movement. They attacked that in the 70s unequivocally. COINTELPRO, it's a fact. J. Edgar Hoover, Nixon, all those policies that got put into place specifically to create a circumstance that led up to eventually the war on drugs in the 80s and Reaganomics, and then, the war on crime. They had all these names that essentially meant a war on people who look like me. That's what it was.
That's
straight
real.
up.
So you get locked up, and then do you kind of have to? At first did you try to just sort of embrace the reputation that you now have for yourself? Like, when did you start to begin to realize that the way that you had gotten into the situation was so unfortunate and that you wanted to change or whatever? Because for a period of time, in particular with the early records that you were dropping, it felt like you basically were just like, well, this is what people want to hear from me, so I'm gonna do this.
I think that originally those records I was dropping, I did that. I wrote that way because the homies liked it. I liked it. Writing about what we were experiencing. I had extreme elements to it, but, it ultimately came down to we in the projects got the trunk open, bumping, drinking, and freestyling to Parliament or the Zap or whatever. And, we rhymed about women, weed, the streets, gangs, the set. And so that permeated my music until I started going to trial. And that was when it really woke me up. That writing Deuce Father Life. After that, my what I wrote changed. Every now and then some, rap would come out of me. But for the most part, when I sat down to write, it was Deadly Game. It was Misanthropy, Land of the Lost, Mama's Pride and Joy. I started writing, I had a fan tell me I was the first conscious gangbanger. And it was true, that happened. During my time in prison, I was blessed to be placed where they put the fathers who fell in that trap. They put the uncles, they put the big brothers, that's where they were. And so I was educated by those men.
By seeing
Bloods,
dudes
Crips.
who were 20 years older than you, who were in the situation that you were probably going to end up in?
That, and those who had already woke up during their time, who had already came to understand that it wasn't just about, the genocidal aspects of gang banging. That became a topic of discussion. And prison is a very segregated location, you know what I mean? It's a lot of activities in there that's predicated on not just your affiliation, but your race.
Right.
And so that made me hyper conscious of, the fact that you could harm a black if he a blood, but don't let that dude do it though.
But a lot of people, like, they go to jail. Like, I was talking to somebody yesterday who was telling me that they went to jail when they were really young, and that made them realize how silly a lot of gangbanging shit was, because they get locked up and they realize that all these dudes want to kill each other on the streets. It ain't really like that once you're locked up. And if the rules can be so completely different just because you're locked inside a building, then what the fuck are the rules?
Right.
Yeah,
because you learn a certain set of rules on the streets only to go to prison and be told. Like, I got off a bus at New Folsom in 1996, 165-man riot, 60-something knives, 3 men shot. And one of the first things that I was told by Turtle's brother, Whiskey, from Santana Block, and it's a legendary keyway on a street level. There, that word, legendary, people... it's a subject right now, but this is a person legendary on the streets and in prisons for representing what he represented and what he stood for. And I was blessed for that to be my cellmate. And one of the things he told me was, you have to help Bloods, Pyrus, you have to help the Bay Area, Kumis, Jama. You got to help them or it's going to be bad.
Right.
So... right on the streets, and nobody's saying that. Like,
The idea that you should
That's
be
insane.
unified beyond your gang or whatever is sort of a foreign principle on the street.
It was completely foreign principle on the street, and get to prison and be told basically that if you're under the threat of violence yourself, if you fail to come to the aid of somebody that's from a rival gang, even if it's the rival gang you in prison for going to war against on the streets.
Yeah.
Even if it's your worst enemy, you got to help him in this specific circumstance. And that led to the, man, well, why? How come nobody told me that
Right.
before I got to this situation with the psychology that anybody that wasn't from what I represented or wasn't one of us was one of them?
Right.
Why couldn't I have been informed about that? But the reason is the people who could have told us was trapped in them boxes.
Right.
That's where they were.
Damn, that's true. So then you start to, it sounds like you had kind of like a blessed prison experience because you were maybe exposed to like a more intelligent perspective on your life early, whereas like a lot of people end up going to jail and they just sort of get wrapped up in even more bullshit.
Right. I think what happened to me, what made it different for me in prison than a lot of other people was I was already X-rated the rapper. By the time I stepped off a bus, I've been in Playboy magazine.
Right.
I've been in The Source. I've been in, all these different publications, you know what I mean? So I was a prize for better and for worse. And so some people were very proud of me and viewed it as, that's ours. We did that. That's an accomplishment that we had, especially that I recorded the music, some of my music in the county jail before I got to the pen. So it was a lot of people who felt like they wanted to tell me something because they heard something, they felt something. One of those people, Sanyika Shakur, Monster Cody, when his book came out, he actually started looking for me and he reached out to me. I got a letter from him. I think back then he used to write for rap pages.
Right.
And he reached out to me and told me that when as many people were listening to someone as I had listening to me, that you had a responsibility to say something worthy of being heard.
Wow.
I remember it verbatim. That's what he said to me. And so, I wrote him back. We started communicating. It's one of the reasons I got validated getting letters from him, but meaning that the prison determined that I was a dangerous person or influential person.
Because you were talking to him.
Because I was getting letters from him. He was validated already. And so they viewed it as, okay, what's cold is in these letters. I get the letter 3 months later, stamped all up because it done went through 5 different investigators before they finally gave it to me.
I can think of such better uses for their budget.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
That's crazy,
Yeah,
bro.
don't you dare mentor that young man.
What the fuck?
Right, but that's what he did. And it woke my game up when he told me that. Wendy Day started reaching out to me about the music business, making sure that I was taking care of my artistic rights, that I had my copyrights, my publishing rights. She started writing, and one of her demands of me was, in order for her to write me back, I had to do homework. She'd send me a packet of information from the Rap Coalition, and I had to actually answer all of that to her satisfaction to get a reply to my actual letter.
Really?
Yeah, she did me like that for about 5 months.
Well, she was just trying to, sort of vet that you were serious?
Nah, she knew that. I think she knew that after the first letter. I think she was trying to educate me. Period. She knew I was listening. She wouldn't have kept doing it if I wasn't getting it.
Right.
So I think that I noticed that through my journey, even with doctors, people with education want to teach it to somebody. And their greatest joy is teaching it to somebody who's learning it.
Right.
You get no happier educator than a person involved with someone who is absorbing what they're trying to teach them.
Right.
Because they spend all their lives learning that stuff. And so she sent me the first letter and I wrote her back, and her response was a pack of information and a Post-it note. Answer these questions, I'll answer your letter. I answered the questions, she replied to my letter, and then I answered her letter, and she did the same thing. What's up? It's X-Rated. If you like this clip, make sure to watch the full-length video. Again, you can follow me on Instagram, official X-Rated1. That's official XRAIDED #1. Holla at your boy.